Hi, I recently discovered Graphite. It's a program to create 2D graphics, mostly vector based, but it can do some bitmaps as well. This is the website graphite.art. If we press launch here, all the way at the bottom of the page you find social, so you can find Discord if you get in trouble. There are also some examples, but here at the bottom is contact. Okay. It's free software, so it's developed on GitHub. Let's do launch. Then we arrive in editor.graphite.art. Now this one is a little bit behind on development. There is also diff for a later version, not the very latest, and they're also working on a desktop app, but that's in release candidate 3, I think, at the moment. Okay. What I want to do depends on functionality that's only in dev. So let's create a new document here. Let's call it colloquies. Let's make it at 1024 by 600. There. First thing I want to do is add some text. I should have it. Oh, Control V. These are going to be the numerals I want to use. Now, I was thinking, so actually what I want to do is I want to split this string on the semicolons. But now I was thinking something else. What if I do this? And then another line. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then the user can make another line in here and do something arbitrary. So drops, not use some of them, put something completely different in there. Yeah. Anyway, so this is the start of my journey. Node graph. Here is my text, but there is an issue. First of all, I don't need a stroke for my text. And the fill, I want to put it there. I have reasons for that. Okay. Now, this text, this string, I'm going to take it away from here and I'm going to make a value, string value, and I'm going to put it in here. So these are my numerals. Let's name it. We could also call it numerals list, but yeah, let's do it like this. So now I have a string. It's separated on the one hand by new lines and on the other hand by semicolons. Now I'm going to make a number value, and this is going to be the selector of the line of the. So let's call it numeric Roman Arabic. Selector. Okay, let's put its value to 1 and let's pin it. If I pin it, this means that if I don't select anything, then I get to see it here. And I can select. Okay, node graph again. That's good. So now to select something here, I'm going to have to split this string. String split. Based on a new line, that's correct. So I'm going to feed my string into this string split. And then now it becomes, it's not a string anymore, it's a list. And now I need to select one of those index elements. Yeah, I need index elements, and I'm going to say that the index is actually this value. There. And then here I'm going to, when you click here, it becomes a parameter, an input. So now I can put this input here, and what happened? Let's go back to the canvas. Let's select nothing. Let's use this. Select nothing. There. So I can select one of those lists. That's a start, but that's not good enough. It's not what I. But it's a good start. So let's put it like that. Okay. But that's not really what I want for a clock phase. For a clock phase I want to select one of them. So I need to do this again. So this one and that one, I'm going to do Control D. Oops. That did not work. Apparently Control D is not possible. Duplicate. It's not functioning in this. What happens if I only select one? Nothing. Usually in a browser you can do Control D, but for some reason that doesn't work. Or maybe it did work and they went somewhere where I don't see them. No. Okay. Okay. I can also select. So if I start pulling here, I can actually do a new string split. And if I pull here, then I can do another index elements. Now the string split here is not based on the new line, it's based on the semicolon. And then I can feed the result of that into my text. So now I see 1, I see I, and I see I. Okay. You're going to say that's not very useful. Not yet. So I can choose from the list. If the user wants to add more lists, they can. So let's also make this series of lists a parameter. Then we split it. The text node, I'm also going to make it pinned. So now if I go here and I don't select anything, I can select this, and I can also select the font. So I can make it. Why does? Oh yeah, it seems to be becoming bigger, but for some reason, yeah. Okay. Okay, so that's good. I can do something with the font. Okay, back to the node graph. Next elements. Good. Now, this index elements, we're always taking the zeroed element. So that is not very useful either. What we want is to repeat them from 1 to 12. We can do that by using something with index. No. Repeat. Simply repeat. The repeat, we're going to put it here after the transform. And along with the repeat comes another node which is called index. Read index. And this index we're going to put it here. Can also look here, repeat. Oh yeah, we have to say how many times we want to repeat it. So we want to repeat it 12 times. So what happened now, it's repeating, but it's putting them all in the same place. So that's not very useful yet, but this one and that one, they belong together. So this one is repeating it, and this one is calling the number, saying which index it's doing at this moment. Now what we need to do is to position them on a path. So let's create a circle. You can also create a circle in another way, node graph. So you can go here, this is an ellipse, and here you have shapes. I have several shapes, and here is also a circle. So that's another way to create a circle. Okay. I made my circle here. My circle has a certain radius. I want to make this radius configurable, and so this is a numeric value. Control D is doing bookmark in this browser. Oh well. Copy is not there, paste is there. Why copy is not there, I don't know. Anyway, can make a new number value, connect it. I could also draw the circle, so if, oops, that's a bit loud. Just a moment. So here is our circle. I want to, it's a bit annoying that this control duplicate does not work. I'm usually using another browser. I was simply testing and seeing what would be possible. Let's make a new artboard. Connect it. Put our circle on it. But first we want to fill the circle, and then we want to add, well, that would be different if I would have simply created the circle in the interface. This would have been easier, but okay. And simply fill it. Not working yet. Let's give it. So this is the radius of the dial. Dial radius. Cannot render. Why not? This artboard, this artboard. Here I don't see anything. I don't need an artboard, I needed a layer. And I want to add a stroke. Both the fill and the stroke, I'm going to make them so it's easy to access them. Without anything selected, now I can easily say that I want to have the fill transparent. There. Okay. Circle is there because it does not have. That's good. That's fine. Actually, both the numerals and the circle, I want them with a transform. So let's add a transform and put the transform here. This transform is going to be 724 and half of 600. There. So now this goes here, and this one that's a bit strange goes there. If I put this transform at 0, 0, then it goes here, which is also a bit strange. It's not nicely centered, but we're going to fix that. But maybe it's better to put the numerals on the clock dial first. Mhm. There we go. So let's put the numerals on the clock dial. Now that we have a circle to that we can use as a path, we want actually an offset from that path. Let's make the circle a bit larger. This does not work very well here. Let's make it 500. That's a bit too much. 300. That's also too much. 250. That's nice. Okay. Good. Okay. So the numbers are here, all on top of each other. We want them there along a path that is slightly smaller than this circle. So we're going to look for, in the vector I think, modifier offset path. That's not what I wanted. Well, the circle can stay there, but we need this offset path. What we want to do is have this as a parameter as well, value, numeral, number value, offset numerals. And let's do 30. So now we have a path to put them on. And now we need to I think it's under vector. It isn't. Offset path. Tangent. We're going to use this one later on. Tangent on path. And so it's on path. Position on path. There. We need both. So the path is clear. I think what we need to do is the progression needs to come from somewhere else. It's actually based on this index divided by 12 because it's between 0 and 1. So we need division divide. So we take the index and we divide it by 12. Always press enter or click somewhere. This we feed into the progress, and our offset path we feed into position on path. And then these two we feed into this transform. So we open the translation and the rotation, and the position on path goes into translation, and the tangent on path goes into rotation. There you go. Now we may not always want to okay. Yeah. Okay, so that's already something, but offset. Oh yeah, I put plus 30. I have to use negative numbers there to make it inside. Okay, that's good progress. There is a problem. Well, there are two problems. One is that they're all displaced because it starts counting from 0 for the index. So what we really need to select something from the list is to add one, and that is our index. Oops. That's odd. So if I add 0, this is strange. So the index goes from 0 to don't understand that, but okay, if it works, it works. I would have expected that I had to add 1 or maybe subtract 1, but add 0, that doesn't make sense, but it is what it is. Okay. Now, another problem. Why is there 1 here and a 7 there? Should we divide by 11? There is something strange going on. But 12. Divide by 12. Maybe this addition needs to go in there. I usually don't do it with selecting from such a list. Usually I put the index straight into the progression after dividing by 12. So this is definitely not right. But I don't need to shift all of them. So here it's rather -1. That's it. So it's actually subtract 1. Okay. We can add -1 and stay like that. That's fine. Okay. So now that we got that resolved. Now we see another problem. If you look here, then you see that the texts are having their 0 point there and not in the center. So we now need to fix that by getting the dimensions of this. How wide are they? Of course, if they're Romans, then the Roman numerals, they become even wider. So, but we want to position them on our inner circle based on their center point. So we are going to figure out what their center point is. So the dimensions, we're going to turn them into a rectangle. The rectangle, we're going to use it because a rectangle does have a center point. So the width and the height, we need to figure it out. And for that there is I think it's vector value. It's not vector value. Split vec. So here we have split vec. Those values we can feed them into this rectangle. And it's the dimensions that I want to split. Oops, what happened here? There. So now I have a rectangle. And now I need to figure out where does that go. So I measured the dimensions. Yeah, I need to constrain. I need to put it in a box. Let's try to find box warp. So the box warp takes a rectangle and then we put it just before the transform here, I think. Let's see what that does. Not sure if it's before or after the transform, so it's not after. There, and then we feed this rectangle in there, you see? So that's good. Now let's play a little bit with it. We can select what numbers we want. Well, it should be 0, 1, 2, and then there are no others. But now the user can add more lists if they like. Okay, so 0 is this with the 4 like the Europeans do. We can make the text bigger, 80. We can, why do I have 2 times text? Stroke. That's strange. I know this is the stroke, so here we can make the stroke bigger. We can influence the text and we can have this number. I forgot something. So this is our selector, dial radius. Here I need to make it, I need to pin them. If I can do Ctrl D, then they're pinned on their own. If you do a Ctrl D with one that was already pinned. So here I can decide how far from the outer circle they have to be, and here I can select which list I want to use, and here I can select the general size of the hole. The whole clock face. Okay, 266. Okay, good. Something else you can do, because I made this text here available, is change the character spacing. What we can also do is we have here the dimensions of the text, and then we're constraining it here into this rectangle. Now we could do a multiplication factor here, and add another number value. Now it's 0. Normally it would be 1, but here you could have it as 0.5. And then you can make them the whole thing more narrow. So on the one hand, so let's also make this one. So on the one hand you can work with the character spacing, and on the other hand you can say that you want it to, how wide you want them to become. So then you can make the characters actually the full characters, not only the spacing between the characters, but the entire characters. You can change how wide they are. So let's call this one numerals width. Okay, so that's good. What we can also do what's the next thing? If we fill and stroke are open, the radius is here, dial radius, we use this to calculate the position based on an offset. We can decide how big the offset is. Okay, now I may want to have more circles, so maybe I want to duplicate that, and this, what did it do? It duplicated the whole thing, but that's not what I wanted, so this has to go. No. What's happening? Edit, undo. So this circle, I don't want it. Inner disk radius. Inner disk. But I want to reuse an offset path. So if I make it bigger and smaller, it follows. Offset path, I want to duplicate this one. Edit, duplicate. Where did it go? I don't know why I don't see it. Anyway, let's do it myself. Offset path. This one too. I want to control the distance. I want to connect it there, and it depends on the whole circle. Let's make it -59. Oh yeah, come on. -55. Okay. So now I have an inner disk and an outer disk. I can fill the inner disk if I want. Why is it not doing that? Ah, because the transparency is still so like that. I can also change the stroke. I don't know if those are, yeah, these are pinned, so that's good. So this is the inner disk. Then I can also make a fill on the outer disk. But actually the outer disk should be in a different position. So this one here should actually be up here. Why does it sometimes connect and sometimes not? There. So now the outer disk is behind it. Stroke, fill. Let's influence the fill. Why can I not? Seems like I'm asking too much. Maybe time to save this, but off. Reload. Fortunately, Graphite is quite good with crashing. It's all still there. Node graph, fill. So I can change the fill. It's also not exactly what I want. Actually I did it wrong. It should be, this should be behind everything. So let's connect that one there again. Okay. Not sure why it's not, there. Now it's filling in blue. Okay, so that's good. Let's save. We have our dial, we have our inner disk. Let's test. We have all these values. 0. It's not very clear that I'm not sure if we can for this one. Number. Could we have the number come from a list with discrete values? I think there is a possibility, but I'm not sure. Okay. Now, in another version that I made a distinction between Roman and Arabic numerals, and then I automatically decided whether they needed to be rotated or not. That is something that cannot be done with this list, but we can still decide whether the numerals need to be rotated or not by influencing this one here. So we're going to create a switch. We put the switch in between here. No. The switch, if it's true, we want it there. If it's not true, we want to feed 0 in there. So I need a value, number value, it's 0. So there, number value. And now I need a Boolean value. Boolean. And I switch based on the Boolean value. I'm not sure why. So the offset path. No, we always need the offset path. It's not. It's a progression that we need to interrupt. The offset path stays. It's actually the index. That either goes through or not. So rotate numerals. Not doing much. So here we have the rotate numerals, we switch. If it's true, we pass the index into the progression. If it's false, we pass 0. Here I'm going to say that this is 0. Why is that not working? Position on path. So this is our path. I'm putting my switch in the wrong place. So this needs to stay like this. And the switch actually happens here for the rotation. So the rotation comes from here. So now where's our boolean? Apparently I didn't. There. Okay. So now I can choose to have it like this or like that. That's good. I could make it smarter and say if it's 0 or 1, then I want to rotate, and if it's something else, and then I don't want to rotate, but so if they're Arabic numerals, I don't want to rotate generally. So I could make it smaller, smarter, but well, okay. So that's that. Okay. Now it's getting a little bit messy. So how can we solve that? So it becomes a little bit more clear what's going on. We can also influence the fill of the numerals. That's not really better, but maybe make them more like a golden color. We could also have each numeral in its own color. Those are all possibilities. We can still make them bigger or smaller. We can choose another kind of font. We can select to have them like that. That's this inner circle. Okay, yeah, it's a bit unfortunate that here you don't see the names that we gave on there. No, can't help that. Here, if you select those, then you only see those. Or you can click here, and then you know what you're influencing. Okay. Now, it does look a bit messy. So what you can do is you can select the group and you can say that you want to merge these nodes. So now we have to decide where are good places to do that. What are things that actually belong together? Like for example this. Has two outputs. Two outputs, one input and another input. So I think that would be a good candidate for merge. Then I also think that this combination here, no, not the index. This part makes a good candidate. The text I want to keep it here because otherwise I cannot pin it anymore. Oh, I should have. Oh yeah. Okay, so the dimensions of the text and all this. And maybe even this part. What about the fill? Now the text fill, I want to keep it here as well. So all this, deciding how big it is, splitting it into a vector. Yeah. So and then transforming it. This is about putting them in little boxes. Now It could be interesting to draw these boxes around them. But it might even be more interesting to not only do that with boxes but with other shapes as well. So I'm wondering, and in that case, so that's belongs together. Box warp. This is to put it into this rectangular box. But at the same time, I don't only want to have the numeral, I want to draw a box or shape around it. And now I'm wondering if I can feed a shape into a node and then define the size of the box based on the size of the and then have that as another layer. So here I'm going to do duplicate. Let's first save. Edit, duplicate. Okay, that's a little bit much. Why is it all moving together? Why can I not deselect and only move what I want to move? Anyway, yeah. Maybe these are the circles. The numerals, they actually these are the numerals in this. Yeah, the numerals are now duplicated. Let's have the numerals here. This is the outer disk. Outer. This is the inner disk. Now you don't have to fill them with color. You can also have them transparent and so on. You can also have more circles if you like. If you want a small circle there, you can add more. What they don't want So what I do want is, it's a bit strange that the numerals are not showing there anymore. So these are going to be the numerals. No, these are going to be the numerals. They're on top of everything. And these are going to be shapes around the numerals. Boxes. Or shapes around numerals. I also need to repeat that. It duplicated all that, but that was not really what I wanted. So I'm going to have to remove a lot. So I still want the dimensions, but the dimensions go there. That's good. What is this? That needs to stay. The fill. The fill can stay. Translation and rotation, I will need it. Because it's going to be slightly different. Why is the rotation? The rotation is also important. But the rotation is only going to that one. It also duplicated this. Offset path. Wow, it also duplicated that. Before making the copy, the duplicate, I should have disconnected a lot. Because all this does not make a lot of sense. It even... This is good. This is good. All that stays. Offset numerals. Stays. No. This goes there. That and that goes. Goes. Oh, I also have another index here. Dial radius is also duplicated. Okay, I think I'm back to something that makes sense. What I want to do is I want to have a rectangle, and this rectangle is going to be slightly bigger than that rectangle. That rectangle I want to fit it in here with a certain translation and rotation based on that, based on the position that's calculated for it. This one is calculating the position on the circle. Numeral position. If I double click here, I can see what's in there. So this is the position on the path and the rotation or not. Okay, to go back to the document, click here. So this was to tidy it up a little bit. Okay, so okay. Now now I want to make a rectangle, and that rectangle I want to put it in here and then make it go around there. So this rectangle is going to be slightly bigger than that rectangle. And how much bigger? So I want to create a new rectangle. With a width and a height. And the width and the height depend on variables I'm going to define here. So number value. Let's call this X padding. And this one Y padding. And here we're going to say arithmetic. Does it make sense to multiply or simply add? Let's add. So this is X. So this becomes a rectangle that is slightly bigger, and this rectangle I'm going to put it there, and I'm going to show it there. I want the rectangles to actually I want to have a fixed width, so not something that's added. So this is the rectangle. The fill I want it to be more transparent, completely transparent, and the white padding there. I don't know, this is something that is a possibility, but my idea was to not only have it as a rectangle, I also want to be able to put an oval around it, so it becomes more like a phone dial. But so at some point I want to do this, and I want to put that into a node, probably even like that. So it becomes a node that goes here or there. But I want to be able to what we could do is have an ellipse with a radius. For the y value I'm going to take the same, and for the x value I'm going to put ellipse. No, I want to add a value, number value, ellipse width. What I don't know is how I can put this into the same layer here. There has to be a way to do that. Maybe by adding layer here, merge, new element, merge. So let's feed that in there and have another layer. And feed that in there, and this one is going here. Does that work? It actually works. So if I make the y padding 0, what I can do is put a switch in between, so this goes in there if true. And the switch depends on whether Y padding is negative. So arithmetic logic less than Y padding less than 0. Apparently that's not possible. Yeah, but that is actually not what I wanted. So I need to make another switch. But why can I? Ah, yeah, okay, so this is good. So I'm going to duplicate this one. No, I'm simply going to create another one. Switch. Switch. And the switch goes in between here. If true, then this goes true. And the switch depends on that condition. It's very strange that if you do it like that, anyway. So now, if I make my Y padding 0 or less, so it's actually greater than. If it's greater than 0, it goes true. And actually greater than, so it's not the Y padding, it's actually the rectangle width and the ellipse width. If those are larger than 0, Then I want to see them. Ellipse width. Okay. Now what I think is interesting about this is that I can add another shape. Star. Here's our star. We can have sides, I can have two radius, two radii. So let's create a number value. Let's use the Y padding. Star inner radius. Star outer radius. So now we can do the same, but it's not only dependent on, well, so here we add another layer. Yeah, and if we do that, then we're also going to have to do a rotation for the stars. But inner and outer radius should not be so different. Yeah, anyway, you get the idea. So there are many possibilities, but I don't know if this makes a lot of sense. Because now we also want to influence rotation. That means that we would have to add a transform node there. Now, my stars are not becoming bigger and smaller depending on the... So they are not really growing us or changing based on that. And the ellipse width, let's make it 0 again. And the rectangle width is 0. Okay. Yeah. So if we do this, then the text would have to be smaller. There. Of course, our star could have... If we select all these at the same time, I can make them there. So we could have stars with different... And of course you can also start filling. Yeah, you can do you can say that the stars are filled. Starting to look like a circus. But yeah, these are possibilities. Okay, so now that we have all that, we can decide what is going to be the input and the output. For all that. I think this makes sense. So merge selected nodes. So these are the numerals plus decoration. So the numeral comes out and the decoration comes out. Here we define the position for the numerals and the decoration. The text and the fill. Okay. Okay, so the next thing. If we don't want stars, I think we can put 0 there. Oops. So apparently still need a switch here. Switch. If true, I want this greater than switch. Okay, so now I can, based on the number of sides, okay, to go back to the document, star sides, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Yeah, it's simply something that I was thinking of that maybe it's interesting, I don't know. Numerals width. Thing is, it all becomes configurable, so that's nice about it. Okay, so we have our text, we have our fill, other fills. Now what I want to do is to draw minute ticks. So then it's going to be a repeat of 60. So it looks like this one. Let's save. Maybe I should do that in the next one, in the next video. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so let's stop here. So what I also want is minute ticks, and they can be based on a character. I also want to be able to draw a line there at that position, um, or lines here. Maybe I want to have two circles there and some lines in between. There's still some more possibilities.